What do I need to be successful? It's a question that you probably have asked, or maybe should have asked many times throughout your life, and especially related to your career. And I bet it's a question that we're now all thinking about differently and really rethinking now that we're mostly working remote. And maybe you're used to working remote, maybe you're not, maybe you're working with people who are not used to working remotely. So, what do you need to be successful? Is a question that I want to address in this video as it relates specifically to working remotely. It's a question that I continue to get asked, and I continue to talk to people, whether it's friends or families or clients of mine, is how do we figure this out? How do we work remotely most effectively? So my goal in this video is to provide you with my big 3 tips for being successful working remotely, and I want to provide you with help. I want to provide you help in the form of an SOS. And so we're going to talk about setup, organize, and see. Setup, organize, and see. So setup is all about ergonomics. Ergonomics is really all about how can we set up our work environment, whether it's from our chair to our desk to the lighting, in such a way that's going to help us be successful and be good for our bodies, good for our ability to focus, and all of those various things that are really important. And so what I would encourage you along these lines is to really pay attention to your workplace setup at home. Most of the time, by definition, our homes are not places that we're used to using as a workplace. And so really be thinking about your desk space. Make sure you have enough privacy. Make sure you have a place where you can really hunker down and work, while balancing the importance of having an open space as well. The research is really interesting on environmental space and office space. Shows that we need spaces where we have a good lighting, where we have higher ceilings to help stimulate creativity. So find some privacy, but a place that's also going to be open and light and airy, where you can not feel like you're confined too much as well. So that's a really important piece as well. I would encourage you to be thinking about the way you dress for your job as well. So just kind of keep the same idea, dress for your day and be intentional about that as well. So the whole setup, from the physical space to even the way that you look and the way you approach your day, is important. So that's the S. The O is really all about organizing. And this is all about routine. Routine matters a great deal. And when you're working from home, when you're working remote, you're going to have to be more intentional about staying focused. It's a little bit of a paradox, because sometimes, I don't know about you, but I find it hard sometimes to focus at work, right? Depending on especially who's in the office that day, it can be challenging. It feels like people are, especially if you work in a place where everybody works close together, you're in close proximity with everybody else, and so they can ping you anytime, they can knock on your door. So sometimes it feels like there's more distractions. Well, at home, because we don't really have that immediate connection, we actually can find ourselves getting more distracted, especially in terms of a personal level, right? So like where we have a lot of our connection to people in our lives at work. And so when we're at home, devoid of that normal social connection that we get, we may actually find ourselves longing for and seeking more of a connection. So we might actually be more intentional. We might actually be pulled in by social media and by checking email, just because we're kind of missing that connection. People are wired for connection. So when that's gone, we're going to find ways to get it elsewhere. And that's actually a theme that I hear from people as I've been talking over the last few weeks with folks. And so I would encourage you to set routines around your day, to organize. And so we're not going to wake up at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and go to work in our pajamas. We're going to dress professionally and dress appropriately for the day. We're going to set normal routines and schedules. You might even have to be more intentional about, making sure that you work for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour. Give yourself a little bit of a time, 2 minutes to check social media, right? So just be intentional. Use technology as a tool, not as a companion. There might be more of a tendency when we're at home to use it more as a companion, because again, we're missing that social connection. So I would really encourage you to be very systematic and very routine focused, more so than you would. You just have to be more intentional about that as well. You might even have to take time to plan out your schedule more intentionally than you would, so that you don't fall victim to just being able to do whatever with whatever time when somebody's not watching you. The third is going to be C. We want to make sure that we provide enough face time. Face time matters a great deal. And so use whatever tools and technology you have at your disposal, but making sure that we see each other is really important on a couple levels. One, it's all about culture. We spend about a third of our waking lives at work and around people at work. And so we want to make sure that we have access to each other, and that we're checking in, that we're asking questions about how people are doing, how their lives are. So we just want to make sure that that's going to help us to build trust the more we can see each other. So I would encourage you to organize meetups, organize hangouts, organize huddles online. In a separate training, I address the topic of media richness, which is the idea that we want to make sure that we're using a variety of methods to reach people depending on the kind of message. And so if we want to do a check-in, rather than an email to say, hey, I hope you're doing well, record a video, invite people onto a Zoom call or to a Google Hangout call or whatever it may be. And so I would encourage you to just be thinking about what's the culture of your organization. If you're a leader within an organization, what kind of culture do you want to set or do you want to establish as well? And if you're an employee in an organization, not in a leadership role, think about using this as an opportunity to be able to see people and to connect with people that maybe you wouldn't always. So there may be some lasting relationships that you can build on and utilize and help other people whenever you come, whenever we all sometimes, someday go back to work. So my hope is that this is going to be helpful for you as you try to figure out what it looks like to work remotely. And maybe if you've been working remotely forever, this will give you some tips to pass on to others as well that maybe you haven't so much thought about. So I would encourage you to continue to follow these trainings that I've provided and just to connect with me and let me know how I can help you from here on out as we try to navigate these interesting times and be really effective in our communication and our work practices. Thanks.